Oh, it's Sunday night and you have those Sunday night anxiety blues. You know what I'm talking about, where you have to go to school the next day and you're thinking about getting into that classroom and having 35 students just staring at you and they're thinking in their minds, what are we doing? And then you're thinking in your mind, I have absolutely no idea. Well, if this has ever happened to you, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm gonna share with you my 4-step approach to lesson planning so that way you can get rid of those Sunday night anxieties. If this is the first time meeting, my name is Gabriel Vigil. I've been teaching in Southern California for a total of 18 years. And if you're looking for tips and tricks of the trade to make your teaching life easier, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Enjoy the video. When I first started teaching 18 years ago, I remember they basically put me in a classroom and said, teach history. I'm like, teach history? What exactly am I teaching? They gave me no clarity, no direction, just teach. And I was lost. About a year later, I got introduced to something called standards. And so those standards give me an idea of what I'm supposed to teach. But the problem with the standards is there's way more standards than there is time to teach it. So once again, in my second year, I am lost knowing what I have to teach. I don't have enough time to teach it all. What I learned through the years is you gotta take those standards and you gotta break those down into identifying what things you think are the most important things students should learn. Because the reality is you're not gonna be able to teach all the standards, but you have to pick and choose what you think are the most important standards. Once you identify the most important standards, boom, you're almost there because you asked and answered the most important question, which is,
where are we going?
Because once you know where you're going, then you can start planning for the trip. So the first thing you gotta do, of course, identify where you are going. And then once you got that, and you know what you want students to learn, you're ready to move on to step 1 of the process. Step number 1 is the calendar. You gotta see what you're working with. You gotta see what time frame you have in order to fit everything into. So now I'm old school, and so what I do is I pull out I print out a blank calendar, and then from there I just start putting things in the boxes of what I need to do. So let's take a look at that and see exactly what I am talking about. This week coming up, in fact, actually this 3 weeks coming up, is my next unit, and the next unit has to do with pre-Civil War. So let me show you how I actually go bit by bit, process by process, step by step, and planning out my next 3 weeks. All right, so the first thing we got to do is, of course, we got to block off our weekends because we don't want to work on our weekends. So I'll kind of just draw a line over here, blocking out our weekends. And then the next thing is we have state testing. Oh, who doesn't love state testing? So I'm gonna put that down here. I'm just gonna put down state here, and I'll kind of go across like this because state testing, how that affects our calendar is state testing because the way we have it scheduled is those are kind of like only half days for us. So I got to know that the 25th through the 29th are half days. In addition to that as well, the 22nd, all our Fridays are half days. So I have to make a note of that those are half days as well. So 25th to 29th, as well as every Friday, are half days. But here is some good news. Oh man, this looks great right here. We got to block this out because that is spring break. So that is what we're looking at so forth. So we're going to start on the 4th. We got an entire week. So basically about 4.5 days the first week. Then spring break, yes. And another about 4.5 days the next week after that. And then the third week, we only have about 2.5 days because once again, 25th to 29th are minimum days. So that's kind of how I block out the calendar.
Are you busy?
Am I busy? Look at this calendar. Yeah, I'm busy. Unless you're a teacher, you have absolutely no idea what things teachers must do, all the different hats we must wear, and all the different obligations that we have. But now that we have the calendar laid out, we know what times and dates we are able to work with, we're ready to move on to step 2. Step number 2 is learning goals. Now, each subject, each grade level is going to be different, of course, and even actually each teacher may have a little bit of difference in this as well. But once you get the calendar laid out, now you have to identify what exactly do I want the kids to learn. Now, as I mentioned before, the topic for the next 3 weeks for this unit is pre-Civil War, but that's a real vague term. And so we're going to dive deeper into that, exactly what we want them to learn under that big broad unit of pre-Civil War. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the things I want to cover regarding the unit of the pre-Civil War are, well, as you see here, we got slavery. So we're going to spend some time talking about slavery. Then we have the opposition to slavery, the different people that oppose slavery. That includes things such as Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, things such as that, as well as some other items. But those are things all covered under opposition to slavery. Then there's the Dred Scott decision, the Compromise of 1850, Slave Song, which I'll explain that in shortly here, Bleeding Kansas, and then John Brown. So those are the different things I want to cover within the unit of pre-Civil War.
That's a lot.
That's what I'm saying. That's a lot of information that we have to cover in the next 3 weeks. So that is so important, why you need to plan appropriately. So now that we have a calendar laid out, we know what we're working with. Now that we know what we want to teach, now we're ready for step 3, which is determining the activities that go along with each of those different topics, as well as when we're going to put those into our calendar. Let's get at it. So here are the activities that go along with each of those topics. For slavery, I have slave narratives, which will take about 4 days to cover. Opposition to slavery, we're going to do notes, which is about a period and a half, or 1.5 days. A Dred Scott decision, 1 day, we'll be doing notes. Compromise 1850, notes, 1 day. Slave Song, called Green Sally Up, 1.5 days. Bleeding Kansas, notes, 1 day. And then John Brown, notes, 1 day.
Freddie, what do you like to do?
Freddie, it's Professor Zest. And what do I like to do? Which activity I like teaching the most here? I'll probably say that I have 2 favorite activities in this unit. The first one is probably the slave narratives. Whew, that is powerful. I won't go into too much detail what the activity is, but bottom line is they read. There's a video where they have famous actors and actresses reading slave narratives. They interview different slaves and they read from those passages, and it is powerful stuff. So I really like that, just because of the impact and just how intense it is. I think it really makes students, as well as myself, realize just how horrible slavery was. That's probably one of my favorite units, our favorite activities in this unit. My second one is called Green Sally. Green Sally is basically, it was an old slave hymn. And then from there, what they did, of course, is they put into, I guess you might call maybe like a poem. So what I have the students do is we read this poem, I'll call it a poem, I guess, and then from there, we have to try to determine what it's all about. So some really thought-provoking questions in there. But what we do at the end is that the hymn is put into a song form, like a modern song form, with some techno music. And what we do is, I saw this CrossFit people do this, is that to that song, Green Sally Up, they would do different things like squats, or they would do planks. And so to end that lesson, I kind of challenge students in my class to different squats or different activities like that, just to see if we can keep up with this song. So those are probably my 2 favorite units. Thank you for asking, by the way. Now, let's take all that and put it into calendar. Let me show you how that looks. So you can see that on 4th through the 7th, Monday through Thursday, we have our slave narratives. And then on the Friday, opposition to slavery. And then we can continue that on the 18th after we come back from our spring break. Oh, that spring break sounds so nice. And then we have the 19th is Notes Dred Scott, 20th, Compromise 1850, 21st and 22nd, Thursday and Friday, Green Sally. And you cannot forget the fire drill on the 22nd. And then once again, the last week is testing. So those are kind of half days or half periods. And so we have Bleeding Kansas, Monday, Tuesday, John Brown notes, Wednesday, Thursday, and then can't forget the culmination of everything, our test on that Friday. We are almost there. The last thing we have to do now is we have to actually look at each day and plan out each day. So that is our step number 4. For each day, you got to get specific because the battle in the classroom will be won in the minutes in between each activity. You got to make sure you know exactly what's going on in each activity, how long it's going to take, because the last thing you want to do is have a big gap in time where students just get a chance to act crazy. So for that reason, you got to plan out each day and each minute of each day.
Every single minute of every single day.
Yes, every minute of every day. Now, I already know what happens the first 5-7 minutes of class. I have a certain routine I follow almost every day. And in fact, if you're interested in that routine, feel free to click up there. That'll take you to the link for my first 5 minutes of class. I also have a link for the last 5 minutes of class, which I will put up here as well. So feel free to click on either one of those to see my routines for the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of class. So those are pretty much well set every day for me. But the rest of the time, we got to figure that out. So let me show you what that's going to look like in my class. So when the students come in, they will see something like this on the screen. It tells them exactly what they have to do for the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of class. It tells them what to put in their planner. It tells them how to set up their paper, what the essential question is, and it gives them an activity they can do. Once again, it is in those first 5 minutes. So if you're interested in how this all plays out, please go ahead and watch that video. So after the first 5 minutes of class, and then we move into our discussion. The purpose of this, once again, is to have students really have a deep thought about something. So here's the one that goes along with the topic we're learning. And so the notes we're taking here is going to be the Compromise of 1850. And so one of it says here, should you be punished if you help somebody commit a crime or only if you commit the crime? And what if the law that you broke was a bad law? Would that be okay? So students will basically write this down and then we'll discuss it. Now the class discussion, I actually kind of go a little bit more detail about that in one of my other videos. Because what I do is I have a thought-provoking question that I connect with the material. And so usually stimulates a great conversation. And then of course I would connect it all together. So it really gets the students to think beyond just the material, what we are learning. So if you're interested in how I do that in my notes as far as those deep thought-provoking questions, click on this link up here and it will take you there so you can see how I do that. With that said, back to the notes. Let's take a look at it here. This will normally take about 10 minutes of class. So far, we're up to about 15-20 minutes of class. From there, we would go ahead and just actually take our notes and they basically just copy information off the board or the screen as I talk about it. Now, here's the important thing is the notes, of course, they could go a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but I always have a backup plan. And so I know exactly, I have a pretty good idea how long the notes will take because I've been doing this a while. But even if the notes take me a lot less time, I have a backup plan. And so I'll usually have this as one of my last slides. It's for them to do a reading out of the book. So what this does is if I notice the notes end short, and it took less time I thought they would, last thing I want to do is have a lot of free time for the students to go crazy. I'll put this up there and that'll give them additional work to complete. And then the very last thing we'll do is write a summary. And part of my end of the class routine is students will basically count up their points and then they will put their notes in the bin on the way out. There you have it. That is how I lesson plan for an entire unit, which is 3 weeks, break it down and eventually into each day. If you found the information helpful, please hit the subscribe button. And remember, together we can make our lemon days into lemonade weeks. Stay zesty.